Circus of the Stars won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
Mad Monster Party?
Yeah, it's a question.
I don't know. Is it a Mad Monster Party?
You have to do it through the entire show. When you mention Mad Monster Party, you're going to have to hit that question mark, baby.
Mad Monster Party?
Yeah, that's it. Excellent.
Yeah.
This was originally supposed to be our show last week, but we were at the mercy of the library, or as some of you say, library, and we had to wait for the disc, the actual DVD, not even a Blu-ray, to come in.
They've never released this on Blu-ray.
Oh, man. They should. It was
honestly, the DVD was really good quality.
It was. The funniest thing was watching these 15-year-old trailers for these bizarre animated movies that I've never heard of.
Weird.
They all look like some really bad animated video game.
They made a Happily Never After 2.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I did not. I knew about Happily Never After 1.
I've heard of it.
Because it was like running on Stars when we used to have cable over and over
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't deserve a sequel, unfortunately. I'm just saying.
No.
Controversial.
That's why I was shocked that there was at all.
Started to bring up some controversy, but
of all the movies to get a sequel, for kids, man, it made money, I'm sure. Yeah.
But so we, it was worth the wait because baby, this movie is so much fun.
Take yourself back to 1967. January 14th, The Human Be-In takes place in Golden Gate Park, San Francisco. The event sets the stage for the Summer of Love.
Yeah, baby, just be.
The Human Be-In.
Yeah,
you're just being a human.
That was the beginning of the progressives, baby.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people wanted to do, hey, baby, make love, not war.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing? I don't think.
No, not at all. In February, the CBS Children's Film Festival began airing, hosted by Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, puppeteered by Burr Tillstrom, the famous puppets from the 50s.
Did you ever watch Kukla, Fran, and Ollie?
No, I did not.
I did. I don't know. I think Kukla was a snake.
Oh, yeah?
Because one of them was a snake, and
Okay.
then I think Fran was a little girl or something, and then Ollie. I don't remember. I just remember Kukla, Fran, and Ollie.
Yeah,
they were all over the place.
They were huge. I mean, they were huge.
Puppets were big, baby. From like 60 to 80.
Yeah,
puppets were king.
Well, and I mean earlier than that, their show was in the 50s. They just hosted this thing because everybody knew who they were, and it was like, well, you don't have a show anymore, so you're going to come host for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, puppets, man. March 7th, Sandy Shaw releases the #1 UK hit Puppet on a String, which would end up winning the Eurovision Song Contest that year.
Ooh.
It is largely ignored in the US until being featured in 2021's Last Night in Soho.
Sing us a few bars.
No.
Oh.
It is one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Really?
It is not good at all.
Aw,
How it won Eurovision is beyond me. It's just very tinkly and it's just not my thing at all.
I saw Last Night in Soho, so I probably heard it.
You probably did, yeah.
I would have sung it if I knew what it was. You're robbing our audience.
No. Trust me, I'm not. They're thanking us right now. March 8th, Mad Monster Party is released into theaters.
Mad Monster Party. Gasp.
Oh my God. From the very beginning, and the fact that they throw the comic book Bam Pow Shriek Eek on the screen is immediately, it's like, okay, I love this.
From the first bar of the opening tune, you know you're in for a good time.
Eek! Yeah, it's just crazy. Mad Monster Party starts with Videocraft International, which would later become Rankin Bass Productions.
They own stop motion.
Yes, they were masters of the stop motion. Arthur Rankin Jr. was born in New York City, the son of actors Arthur Rankin and Marion Mansfield. His paternal grandmother was actress Phyllis Rankin, and his paternal step-grandfather, who adopted his father, was actor Harry Davenport, who played Dr. Meade in the film Gone with the Wind.
What did his mom do?
Not a lot of anything of note. But she was a working actor. Is that time when, you could be in a movie a week and still nobody would know your name.
Contract players.
Yeah. Rankin began his career as an art director for the American Broadcasting Company in the 1940s.
ABC, baby.
That's ABC.
Owned by Disney now.
Yeah, that's... Now we plugged our masters.
Well, it was a fact.
No, I know.
It was
a
a neutral fact.
It's funny. So Jules Bass was born in Philadelphia and was educated at New York University. He first started working at an advertising agency in New York.
Of course he did. By the way, he's got an awesome name, Jules Bass.
Yeah. Well, both
cool.
of them. I mean, the fact that it's Rankin Bass, like, it's just so... It just rolls off the tongue.
I'll tell you this, though. If I were Jules Bass, I'd be Jules Bass.
I don't know. I like Bass. I think it's...
Bass, baby.
No, okay. In 1960, Rankin and Bass founded Videocraft International with the intention to produce television commercials. One of the first projects they were offered was an independently produced television series in 1960, The New Adventures of Pinocchio, based on the Italian author Carlo Collodi's 1883 novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio.
Oh, Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, yeah, that's actually, I don't know. I don't speak Italian,
I think
so...
the two C's is the ch.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I had a friend whose last name was Cecco Mancini, but it was actually Ciccio Mancini.
Ciccio Mancini. Yeah. That actually makes sense, and I think that we've always just said it wrong.
Pinocchio. We can watch that. Who's that insufferable actor who climbed on all the seats in the Oscars? Not Bernard.
Bertolucci. No,
not Bertolucci. That's an amazing director.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
Hey, it's like go get the I'm gonna be everything to the guy.
Too much energy.
Well, he did a Pinocchio movie. Pinocchio.
Yeah, but I want to say that we can blame the mispronunciation on Disney.
Yeah, well, full circle. Now we're slamming our masters.
It was the first special to feature Animagic, a stop-motion animation process using figurines or puppets.
A lot of brain power went into that word.
They coined it, and it worked.
Man, this is magical animation. What should we call it?
I don't...
Wait a minute.
Stop motion? No.
Stop motion Asiatic? No. Magic? How about Animagic?
Yeah. It's marketing. They're marketing guys.
I don't know why I'm being so crappy. I love this movie so much.
I know. A process pioneered by George Pal's Puppetoons and Animagic was a process pioneered by George Pal's Puppetoons and Art Clokey's Gumby and Davy and Goliath. It's just stop motion.
Hey, Davy.
Yeah. That's what was popular. George Pal was really big in stop motion, but Animagic was coined by Rankin and Bass.
And much better.
Yes.
Gumby's great. I loved Gumby and Pokey when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Davy and Goliath scared the crap out of me.
It's weird.
It is. There's a Moral Oral. Did you watch?
Oh
it?
yeah.
There's a great parody series called Moral Oral on
highly recommend.
On Adult Swim.
It's all claymation. Yeah.
It's if you've ever seen Davy and Goliath. Hey, Goliath, what's going on? What do you think Jesus will say about this? I don't know, Davy. It sounds like a sin to me.
But this stuff was all claymation for the most part. George Pal did some puppet stuff, but Rankin and Bass was almost entirely just dolls. Like, they did not use claymation.
Right.
For the most part. I think there was a couple things they did, but for the most part, it was just them creating these, 4 to 12-inch dolls and then using them to, with skeletons, essentially, then animating them.
Right. Yeah. Which is, that's basically what a lot of the stop-motion people do now is they, I think Tim Burton actually creates...
He does.
I don't think it's claymation with him. I think he creates actual...
I think you're right. I don't think it is either. It's some kind of resin or something.
But like the Wallace and Gromit guy, that's like a claymation.
Yeah, so full-on claymation, yeah. Rankin and Bass adapted the Pinocchio story and shared directing credits. Jules Bass was meticulous in how he wanted the special to look and feel, but they could not do the bulk of the stop-motion animation themselves, so they turned to Tadahito Mochinaga, a Japanese animator and pioneer in stop-motion animation.
And a crazy interesting cat, man. This guy has a story.
A lot of it not his own will, but
fascinating. Fascinating what he went through. I mean, go ahead.
Tadahito Mochinaga began his animation career in the middle of World War II Japan. During this time, he was the assistant to Seio Mitsuyo on Momotaro's Sea Eagles, an animated propaganda film depicting the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Mochinaga was officially in charge of backgrounds and visual effects. Most Japanese children at this time were taken on official school trips to watch the film. It was just pure propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
It's World War II. Yeah. We were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
In reverse.
Totally. Mochinaga was not particularly happy about this. He wrote in his memoirs...
I heard that many youths volunteered for the Flying Corps and that while they were on duty, they died on air raids. I wonder whether the film we made influenced their decision to volunteer. I thought in the future, I only wish to make a film that would benefit the young, difficult as that might be.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not happy with the fact that it was essentially driving up people to fly planes and die.
Good, because then it would be really hard to love this movie thinking that a propagandist who,
It's interesting because that sentiment goes through a few of the other creative types on Mad Monster Party. Yeah. Shortly after the release of Momotaro's Sea Eagles, Mochinaga was put in charge of Fuku-chan's submarine, despite his own protests that he was too inexperienced. Due to the fact that much of his staff was drafted to the military and lack of supplies and funds, Fuku-chan's submarine was barely finished and released in 1944.
So he wasn't assigned to an actual submarine.
No, it was the film. It was called Submarine. It's essentially another propaganda film.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, again, to drive people to be recruited into the Japanese Navy. Yeah. Which I get he did not want to do. I mean, he didn't want to have people die.
You don't really have a choice.
No, at this point he did not.
No, not in that time.
Exhausted, Mochinaga returned home after finishing the film to find it destroyed in a bombing raid.
Jesus, can you imagine? Can you imagine coming back from location and the whole apartment building's razed?
Yeah, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, great. Well. Fearing the American occupation, Mochinaga and his family fled to Manchuria, the Japanese-controlled Chinese peninsula, only to have it then occupied by the Soviets.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, man, out of the frying pan into the fire, I guess. He worked on propaganda films for the Soviets until 1954, when he was able to return to Japan.
Poor bastard, man. He was a propagandist.
Literally for 12 years. All he did was make propaganda movies.
A long time.
For one government or another.
What a horrible existence.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, look, it could be a lot worse, but you're making stuff that you don't agree with at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Gotta be tough.
I would have a hard time with that, yeah.
I mean, at least with the Soviet stuff, it probably wasn't, getting them to be kamikaze pilots or...
No. I'm sure it was more just how great we are. Look how great we are.
Oh, I saw a lot of that when I was in Russia.
Oh, yeah.
They love to say how great they are. They did invent the leg extenders,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to... This is a quick speed bump. When I was in communist Russia, I think I've mentioned this before on the show, and one of the things that they would take us around and pour vodka down our throats and tout these great Soviet achievements. And one of them was that they found a way to extend a dude's legs 3 inches, make them 3 inches. They cured shortness, but all they did was bust his tibias, put in extenders on his tibias, so he just looked odd because his legs were too long for his little body, and they were like, see? So they cured shortness.
Nice.
Apparently.
All right.
Didn't take on in the world.
No, really.
Here, because this was a few decades ago. Still waiting for that big Russian shortness.
Leg extenders.
Leg extenders. Good Lord. They're super proud.
Wow. Okay.
And that's the kind of crap he was making propaganda. He's like, how do I spin this? How do I spin these creepy leg extenders to be some sort of miraculous...
Are you tired of being short?
It's like with everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rankin and Bass would detail everything they wanted for the work before sending it over to Mochinaga. Mad Monster Party was the last film that Mochinaga animated for Rankin and Bass. He worked on their first 4 or 5 specials and features they did.
He's a genius, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they did Mad Monster Party, they didn't do it like any other stuff. We'll get to that, but what they did was incredible.
Yeah, it was great. Rankin and Bass would hit it big with their TV special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which I'm sure everyone has seen.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Played constantly.
She thinks I'm cute! She thinks I'm cute!
With Burl Ives playing Sam the Snowman, and with an original orchestral score from Johnny Marks, who wrote the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in 1949, the TV special became the longest-running Christmas special in TV history.
Yeah, it's everywhere all the time. Everybody knows it.
It airs 50,000 times during Christmas.
Because it's awesome.
People were obsessed with Animagic.
Well, look, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer could have been so dumb.
Yeah.
But it's, you got the little dentist guy, who wants to be an elf that wants to be a dentist, which is a great allegory for every sort of outcast person in the world. They go to the Island of Misfit Toys. Everybody who feels like an outsider completely, you identify with that.
Yes,
Yukon Jack. You got the Abominable Snowman.
Yeah,
you got everything, baby.
It is an easy way to identify. Everybody's an outcast, so everyone identifies. It does not matter. You identify with it. Period.
Yeah, and you know what, Adam?
Yeah.
Bumbles bounce.
Yes. In 1965, they released a theatrical animagic movie called Willie McBean and His Magic Machine.
Yeah, there's a porn version of that.
I am sure there probably is.
I actually saw Willie McBean.
I have not seen this yet. It actually is on YouTube in its entirety, so you can totally check it out. It sounds very weird. Would definitely fit into this month. It tells the story of Willie McBean, a young schoolboy who teams up with an anthropomorphic Spanish-English monkey named Pablo to prevent the villainous Professor Rasputin Van Rotten from changing the history of the world using the newly created and duplicated magic time machine via blueprints that Pablo stole from Van Rotten.
Yeah, it's a story as old as time.
It sounds like something that you just pitched.
Well, yeah. Hey, Hollywood. I vaguely remember this. I don't have the same memory as I do with Mad Monster Party.
So bizarre.
Well, we'll have to. Well,
it
when
literally opens. I watched the first 5 minutes. Yeah. It literally opens with a talking monkey breaking into his bedroom, going, "You have to make this time machine."
Okay. Round 2 of weird movies. We're popping that baby in
and
there.
It's literally it's the original Bill and Ted's, because they literally jump around and like try to fix everything that Van Rotten does.
Nice.
So like it goes through all these different time periods, and like it's.
So you're saying Alex Winter has ripped it off? He's a thief. Plagiarizer.
It was heavily influenced by Willie McBean and His Magic Machine.
Great title, too.
Oh, so fantastic. In 1966, they released The Daydreamer in theaters. It was another animagic movie. This film was based on the tales of Hans Christian Andersen. It featured voice acting from Paul O'Keefe, Jack Gilford, Ray Bolger, and Margaret Hamilton. Both of them from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
As well as Burl Ives, Tallulah Bankhead, Patty Duke, Haley Mills, and Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff, I'm back doing another on a magic film.
It's really funny because they only list the first 4, and I had to search so hard to find the other cast, and I was like, they're so much bigger than everybody else. It was crazy.
I think what we're kind of realizing doing this show is there is a lot of like forgotten history of some really great stuff.
Yeah.
And we're doing the Lord's work, baby. We're bringing all this stuff back from the dead, and we're, giving you a reason to watch it. And especially this. Like, this whole month has been about really obscure, hard to find, fun, different movies. Yeah. And if you love the Universal monster movies and puns and silliness, you're going to love this movie.
Dad jokes. So many dad jokes.
Yeah, it is dad joke central, baby.
This The Daydreamer was the first picture to be distributed by Joseph E. Levine at Embassy Entertainment, which would later release Mad Monster Party.
I'm not going to stop laughing every time you do it.
Horror movies with recognizable monsters were making a resurgence. In 1957, in 2 weeks, American International Pictures put out I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and Hammer Films put out The Curse of Frankenstein.
Before that, the Universal movies were extremely popular in the 30s, right?
30s, yeah. Early 40s.
They had a good run in the 40s, too, with, like, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. And
there
was a big... there was a big interest in monster movies back then. For whatever reason, probably atomic bomb,
World War I, or World War II, even. Sorry, World War II.
Kind of like people were afraid of other stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because this similarly happened with Mad Monster Party. Mad Monster Party, and the time that it came out, and we'll talk more about that. But like, it was very similar with the Vietnam War, and like the horror stuff. Kind of, it's not that it stopped; it just changed drastically.
Most of the stuff post World War II, especially in the 50s, were very atomic based.
Yes.
Oh, there was an atomic bomb, and now there's giant ants. Oh, there's an atomic bomb, and now there's giant rabbits. Oh, there's an atomic bomb.
Between 1948 and 1957 was all just giant monsters that came from the deep,
or brains that came to life.
Outer space stuff, like things that were so far fantasy that like it was not something that you could, it wasn't something that was probably going to happen.
And there was also no respect for these films. These were all independent companies like AIP,
American International Pictures,
and other So they were like the redheaded stepchild of the film industry, mostly regulated to drive-ins and discount
Yeah,
theaters
it was.
and such.
Yeah, and that was
Hugely popular.
That was the thing. Yeah, so in 1957, after they released these two movies, they made so much money that all these studios realized, oh, they were cheap, they could make money. So everyone started making these movies. In October of 1957, Screen Gems, a new company at the time, had purchased 52 Universal horror movies, and they were screened everywhere, usually on newly minted TV shows, because they needed content.
Oh, yeah.
And
Creature feature, baby.
And they were always hosted by weirdos in costumes.
Oh, man. And that ran up into the 70s and 80s.
Oh,
There
yeah,
was,
definitely.
That and cartoon shows. There was like
Yeah.
the guy that hosted the Popeye stuff who
Yeah,
hosted
yeah.
a ton of crap. But
Yeah.
I think what was brilliant about it was the way that they shuffled it in was by using the teens.
Yeah,
I was a teenage
yeah,
werewolf. I was a
yeah.
teenage Frankenstein.
Hitting that audience.
Hitting the kids, baby.
Hitting them as hard as you can.
Oh, and just like, anything that the kids like, all of a sudden it was bad for them and it had to be stopped.
Of course.
Oh, this is immoral.
Yeah.
It's immoral what they're doing to our children.
In 1958, Forrest J. Ackerman started the magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland, which was the only thing writing about horror movies, so it was huge.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely huge.
Brilliant.
Forrest J. Ackerman was also all about puns and bad dad jokes. He was a nerd. He was a very big nerd.
Well, most horror movie aficionados, look, I'm one.
Yeah,
Yeah. We are weird.
No,
And
I agreed.
That's why we like horror movies.
Yeah.
We're
There's
damaged.
something about you that you need to be scared. There's definitely, yes. As it turned into the 60s and as they rolled on, horror got even bigger because everyone realized they could make money from it, so they started making cheap and expensive masks.
Yep.
All those rubber masks that always smelled funny.
Yeah, and you had the emergence of Roger Corman at that time.
Yeah, it was a lot of, in the early 60s, realizing that you could make so much money off these movies by spending $10,000. And
If you want to see a really fun movie about a guy trying to make a horror movie, watch Ed Wood.
oh yeah, Ed Wood's
Because-
phenomenal.
He was the greatest, worst filmmaker ever.
Oh my god.
And honestly, his movies are so bad. Like, you watch them, they're just horrible. Like,
I watched Plan 9 from Outer Space, and I tried to show it to somebody, and literally like 20 minutes into it, I was like, I can't do this.
It's unwatchable.
I can't do this anymore.
but the movie just shows how plucky and what you just loved.
It's one of Johnny Depp's best performances.
One of my favorites, yeah.
And he is just so unabashedly positive all the time.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, everything goes wrong. No, it's great. We'll figure it out.
Oh, we'll figure it out. It's all fine.
It's
Yes.
so good. And one of the very first people to become come out as trans.
Yeah.
Like he did Glenn or Glenda and was I'm going to play both parts.
Yeah.
And he very much paid for that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the guy had a lot of balls. I mean,
Yeah.
he had a lot of guts to do what he did. Also, Martin Landau, I think, won an Oscar for.
He
playing
did.
for-
He did.
You know what? Can I quick? So, the Ralph's down at the corner. For a long period of time, after that movie came out, I would run into Martin Landau there.
Oh, really?
We had this weird. We didn't speak. We had this weird thing where he would see me, and I would see him.
Yeah.
We recognized each other. He'd wink. I'd wink. And that was our relationship for like 5
Nice.
years. It was
Wow.
the best. And he would he'd totally recognize me. He'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh." But that was the thing we had. I never approached him. I think
Yeah.
at some point it just got to be this thing that we had.
Yeah.
That was just magical.
That's funny.
That I've never had with it was
Yeah.
just so cool. And I don't think I've ever told anybody about this.
That's
But I
funny.
had such a cool winking relationship with Martin Landau. So that's why I love this town so much.
That was shortly after I moved to LA. The same thing happened with me over like 5 or 6 years with Jennifer Love Hewitt. It was so bizarre. I would literally be places and she would just walk in, and then she'd look at me like I was the one following her, and I was just like, "No, I was here first."
Yeah, I think she had a little something for you.
Nah, well, yeah. So they also came up with like model kits, like you could make your Universal monsters. You'd paint them,
yeah.
hand paint them, and stuff. They were
I had
huge.
those. I had the
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I had the Dracula. And the Frankenstein, you got the one with the head and the hands glow in the dark.
Yeah, that's awesome. They also had a lot of horror-themed music that became very popular. A lot of weird, the Monster Mash and all this stuff. It was-
the mash. It is the monster mash.
In 1964, the Munsters and the Addams Family were very popular, which was a spin on the nuclear family. And Which
That's my monster.
Yeah, no,
Pretty good.
Got that. Which is the irony is that this is now becoming a thing again with the remake of the Munsters coming out. And,
Addams Family.
Wednesday, the Addams Family project. The timing was perfect for Mad Monster Party to poke fun at an oversaturated market. In order to keep expenses down, the film's producers did not want to pay royalty fees for the use of the names King Kong, the Frankenstein monster, the Bride of Frankenstein, Quasimodo, and the creature from the Black Lagoon.
No, but they did use...
They did use Frankenstein. They did.
Victor von... Is it...
Baron von Frankenstein.
Victor von Frankenstein, right?
No, not Victor. It's Boris. Boris von... I believe so, yeah.
I thought it was...
Baron Boris von Frankenstein.
In the book?
No, sorry. Are you talking about the book? I was talking about Mad Monster Party.
Oh.
In the book, it's Victor Frankenstein. I don't think it's Von anything. I think it's Victor Frankenstein.
I had a weird revelation thinking about all of this, and I started thinking about Young Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
And how he was Frederick Frankenstein. So he's basically Fred Frankenstein. And it just made me laugh so hard. He's like, hey, look, I'm Fred Frankenstein. What do you want from me?
Since they couldn't use these. Most of these were copywritten through Universal, so they couldn't use the names. So they end up using recognizable faces, but just change the names to something like King Kong is It. The Frankenstein monster is Fang. The Bride of Frankenstein is simply the monster's mate. Quasimodo is called the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the creature of the Black Lagoon is just called simply the creature.
Yeah, and they look a little bit... I mean, Quasi looks like Quasi.
He definitely does, more from the book than in the movie. And the creature from the Black Lagoon does not like anything like... He's purple in this.
Yeah.
Like, long, spindly legs.
They look cool.
They look great.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not the same look.
But exactly the same feel.
Yes.
So it's like
100%.
you're not missing a beat.
No, totally. The names Count Dracula, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde and the Invisible Man were in the public domain at the time of the film's production, and thus no royalty fees were required for the use, so they used them in the film.
Excellent.
Harvey Kurtzman was tapped to write the script from a story by Rankin and Bass. Kurtzman cut his teeth working for EC Comics and then created Mad Magazine in 1952.
I will love him forever for that. That was my Bible growing up.
Harvey Kurtzman was fascinating.
Well, he and William Gaines pretty much created Mad.
Yeah, Gaines was the money man. Like
he started EC Comics.
Yeah. Well, his father started EC Comics.
Right. Then he started doing horror comics and horror comedy comics.
Yes. And Kurtzman absolutely hated horror comics.
I know, weird.
Hated him with a passion. He thought that those stories had the same sort of influence on children that the chauvinism of war comics had, which he had worked hard against during World War II. He was anti-propaganda. He was like, I'm not creating this crap for you because I don't want children to go off and die.
We talked about there was this huge backlash against horror comics. Comic books in general.
That's why we had
the devil.
Comics Code Authority. That is, you couldn't release a comic without having that little stamp on there because, you're going to corrupt the youth.
This puritanical fear has been guiding us since the beginning, and it hasn't stopped.
Part of the reason was that Kurtzman, he was very meticulous, much like Rankin and Bass. He was very meticulous about his work, and he did not produce as much as the guys doing the horror comics did.
Right.
They would just slapdash the stuff off, and he hated it because it was like, this is art to me, and I need to make this correctly.
Have you seen some of the early Mad magazines? Like
a little bit, yeah.
They are so incredible. It's almost got like a Fabulous Fury Freak Brothers feel to it. It's got that R. Crumb kind of like weird drawing style. And it's like, it's so odd and so subversive.
Very weird. And
if you get a chance, you could probably get it online or whatever, but check out the early Mad magazines. They used to, I'm a huge Mad collector and I have tons of magazines still. And they used to have these super special bonus things that they would sell. And a lot of times in the early ones, they would include original Mad comics reproduced, like a little fold-in thing that you could pull out.
Nice.
I think I still have some. I'll give them to you. But, it was just like, it was just night and day. I was so surprised.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Mad Comics eventually just became kind of parodying like media and stuff. But back in the day, it was It was very subversive.
Up until I subscribed to Mad Magazine well into my 30s.
Oh yeah.
And the 70s and the 80s, I think, were the heyday. And it's only because that's when I was reading them. But they would not just like parody movies, but they would release like parodies of the Constitution.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
They would come up with
it wasn't just. Yeah.
It was just a subversive magazine that nothing was sacred. They poked fun at everything.
Yeah.
And that's why parents got so mad.
Oh, yeah.
There was one point I was reading Mad Magazine. I was like 7 or 8. And there was like some VD joke that my mom looked at right when I was reading it. She's like, "What a snoop!" and snatched it out. And I was like, "No Mad Magazine for you." It lasted about 3 months. But I couldn't live without it.
Yeah.
Couldn't.
Well, it was Kurtzman. I think that he was only with Mad Magazine until like 1964 or something.
Yeah.
Like he eventually left to go do other things.
He wasn't a perfect fit for that. It was great that he did help create it.
It was necessary for him to get it to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
But he was just a very particular person.
Persnickety.
Thank you. Persnickety is the word I'm looking for. Jack Davis actually suggested Kurtzman for the job to write Mad Monster Party, having worked with him on EC Comics and Mad Magazine back in the day. Jack Davis designed the character looks in Mad Monster Party.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're a Mad fan, and especially a Jack Davis fan, who did a majority of like the parody, he was so great at creating the celebrities and
his art had his caricatures had very, very distinctive looks, and it translated so well for Mad Monster 100%,
Party. Yeah.
There were rumors that Forrest J. Ackerman actually had a hand in the script, since so many puns are similar to those seen in his articles in Famous Monsters of Filmland, but it's never been proven. And our Goldschmidt, Rick Goldschmidt, the Rankin and Bass historian, who sounds exactly like
Colin Anderson?
Colin Anderson, the energy vampire from What We Do in the Shadows.
So if you're talking about Rankin and Bass,
God,
which I want to do.
I had to actually stop watching because it was so like dead on.
These fellas, they had a long career.
Rick came out and said specifically that Forrest J. Ackerman had nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
so
he would know.
Yes. He
has given his entire life to researching and giving us the facts of Rankin and Bass.
Yeah,
that's why he's talking like this.
That's why you slowly die as he tells these stories.
Yeah, in the inside.
They cast Boris Karloff as Baron Boris von Frankenstein.
I am going to retire, I believe.
It's funny because I went into this thinking that Boris Karloff had kind of been forgotten.
No.
Absolutely not. That man worked so much for his entire career.
He was so popular. He would show up on I Love Lucy. He would show up on every television show, playing himself or playing. He was a likable, lovable guy. He was like the opposite of Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, drug problems, very unhappy man.
Yeah.
Kind of disappeared into his bungalow and lived there until he was found by our good friend.
To bring it all back around, found by Ed Wood and was in Plan 9 from Outer Space and died during the filming.
Yes, because he was
he was a heroin addict.
But he was, it was nice for him to be back and doing it. And I think I think him participating in that,
totally
led to a good ending for him rather than just being alone.
It was a nice cherry on top of his kind of sad Sunday.
But Karloff I don't believe he had any drugs or alcohol problems or anything. He was just really
loved to work.
Yeah, and people loved working with him too.
Yeah, he was a great guy. He was a good dude.
And he was so much more than just the monster.
Yes, he was. Although he did parlay that a lot. He would always be playing Frankenstein or the Doctor or whatever.
He's one of those guys too that didn't run from what made him famous. Didn't anger him and make him resentful because he was Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
He was overjoyed with it, you know? And think of like all of the toys. And I mean, everybody's got a Frankenstein mask or a Frankenstein toy or a Frankenstein something.
He was so good. He was just so good. He had a resurgence of sorts playing the Grinch and How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
He became much more well known to the younger audiences because of How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Perfect. You're the mean one, Mr. Grinch.
He was so fantastic. But he worked constantly. He was in a bunch of these beach party movies with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello.
Odd.
Well, they had a tendency to cast, like Buster Keaton was in a couple of them too.
Yeah.
Like they had a tendency to cast like older stars.
It was stunt casting.
Yeah, 100%.
It was to get the kids to bring their folks to the movie.
Exactly. Mad Monster Party was one of the last 3 films released starring Boris Karloff before he died, because he died in 1971, I think. 1970, something like that. But he worked so much that he actually had 6 movies released posthumously.
He's Nick Cage of his time, baby.
6 movies.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, like after Nick Cage or, one of these guys.
Bruce Willis.
Poor Bruce Willis.
I know. It's just that he's just working all the time.
What I'm saying is I think, let's use Nick Cage because he's healthy.
Yeah.
So I think once Nick Cage passes in 40, 50 years, there's going to be about 80 films.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be released posthumously.
Yeah. It was like, wow, he looks so young in this. It's because he filmed it in 2021.
Yeah, exactly.
This was Boris Karloff's final involvement in a production connected to the Frankenstein mythos that had propelled him to stardom some 3 decades later.
Good way to end out.
Yeah, totally. They cast Phyllis Diller as the monster's mate.
Hey, Fang.
My God, that laugh.
I adore her, baby. She's another one of those people that just floated through the 70s being awesome. Didn't give an F.
Yeah.
Funny as, her whole thing was about how she's ugly and about, plastic surgery.
Yeah.
She was not ugly, by the way. She was a very pretty woman. But she just had this personality that was so captivating and fun, and
she was the biggest person in the room all the time.
No wonder she became a big gay icon, because I mean, it's like she was just, if you look at a lot of drag shows today, a lot of it they owe it to her. I mean,
she the colorful clothes, like all the
brash personality, the singing, the dancing. Talking about Fang, her husband Fang.
Diller was a big get for Rankin Bass because big names weren't usually used in animation at this point. Like, I think it's part of the reason why in their first movie, for The Daydreamer, not Willie McBean. For The Daydreamer, like those, like Tallulah Bankhead and Patty Duke and all that, because they didn't think they could use them to promote these, like, animated movies, I mean, big stars didn't do this stuff.
You wouldn't, I mean, that seems ridiculous today. You can't make an animated movie.
I don't like Where It's Gone, and that you have to have a big name to make a movie.
No, I mean, because there's guys that are just, I guess Fred Tascatore? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
I'm really bad with names. I guess he's like the closest thing we have to like Mel Blanc or, one of these guys, but it's just there used to be these voiceover guys that were just masters, and that was their gig. And there was a separation. Yeah. Where their talent was there in that. And then, once they realized, well, if we get Sylvester Stallone to play the wily, rat.
Yeah.
Then we'll be able to sell it. Rat.
Yeah. Just got another movie from The Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Every animated movie has The Rock and Kevin Hart. Really? Do we need? Do they bring anything special to this?
Does anybody else get to make movies besides The Rock and Kevin Hart?
No.
It just seems actually, like 90% of the movies are just like grabbed by them, and then whatever's left is on Netflix with the other people.
They made a deal with Hollywood, literally Big H Hollywood, that they have to appear in 90% of the movies contractually. Yeah.
They're fine. I like them.
I know they're fine. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just oversaturation.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I think The Rock is a very personable, nice person. He seems like a great guy. Yeah. He's so charitable and awesome. But I think he needs to take a year off.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Hart needs to take a year off because I think they could use the rest and relax. Kevin Hart, I don't understand how he has so many hours in the day to do as many projects as he does.
I have no idea.
He's got talk shows and game shows and this show and that show and this movie and that movie and stand-up tours and whatever. He's an incredible work ethic.
Working 100% of his time.
And I admire him.
More
greatly,
power to him, yeah.
But he needs to take a year off. We need some time away. I mean, some actors realize that.
They do. Yeah.
And it's not their fault. You do a lot of projects, a lot of stuff gets released at the same time, and it's like you can't get away from it. They don't want it either.
Right,
but there's some of these guys that just think if they stop, they're going to die.
Yeah.
And they just have to work all the time.
Diller was one of the first female comics to become a household name in the U.S., credited as an influence by Joan Rivers, Roseanne Barr, and Ellen DeGeneres, among others.
Yeah.
She had a large gay following and is considered a huge gay icon. She was one of the first celebrities to openly champion plastic surgery, for which she was recognized by the cosmetic surgery industry. Yeah. Diller's gag file, a steel cabinet with 48 file drawers with more than 50,000 jokes she had written on index cards during her career, is now sitting at the National Museum of American History.
As it should.
Which I actually saw the last time I was in D.C.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Did you see the cards?
No, it was just the cabinet.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I mistakenly went to the National Museum of American History thinking I was going to the Science Museum and ended up at the American History Museum by accident, but it was fantastic.
Nice. Happy accidents.
Yes. They had a whole video game thing. It was cool. Anyway.
I like to go.
It was fun. In her stand-up comedy routine, Phyllis Diller referred to her husband as Fang. She decided to use the name when referring to the Frankenstein monster whom her character is married to in the film because that was what she was used to. The producers decided to allow it since the name of Frankenstein was copyrighted and referring to the name or his monster would have required paying royalty fees.
And it just adds to her presence
It's
because
it gives personability, yeah.
It gives people the connection that they need to be like, oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, she's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
That's what Fang looks like?
Oh, my God.
Was like,
Alan Swift as Felix Flanken. Swift also provided the voice of primary characters.
Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster Fang, the werewolf, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Invisible Man. Oh, I see what you're doing here. Oh, I'm going to get you. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Hello, I'm Dr. Jekyll. And it. In addition to supporting characters, Yetch, a skeleton, Chef Mafia Machiavelli, one of my favorite names, Mr. Cronkite, the freighter captain, the first mate, and the mailman.
Essentially, Alan Swift played every male character in the film except for Baron von Frankenstein.
He did, and he did a great, great job.
I've never heard of Alan Swift before.
Neither have I.
And the fact that he literally did like 20 characters is insane.
And I always love actors acting against themselves.
Yes.
And that's not easy because you have to hit the timing on both sides, especially comedy. You have to embody. Mel Blanc is the master, absolute master of this. You watch one of the Looney Tunes cartoons, you see Bugs Bunny, you see Daffy Duck, you see Elmer Fudd. You don't think of him.
Right.
And it's the same thing with this.
Alan Swift did the same thing, correct.
Until we did this show, I had no idea that he did all the voices.
No clue. Swift is best known for providing the fiendish voices for the cartoon villains Simon Bar Sinister and Riff Raff on the cartoon Underdog.
Nice.
He also voiced many of the characters in The Bluffers, the 1960s underwater puppet show Diver Dan, and Gene Deitch's 1961-62 group of Tom and Jerry cartoons. According to Mopar magazine, he was also the voice of Tech for their series of service training films providing color commentary and dry humor to help keep things digestible and interesting.
Hi, I'm Tech. I'm here to help you through this by making things very digestible and easy to take.
Swift supplied most of the character voices for the NBC Howdy Doody show when Buffalo Bob Smith, who himself did the voice of the lead puppet character Howdy Doody and had many times proclaimed that
nobody else could do Howdy,
suffered a heart attack. Swift took home some recordings over the weekend, came back on Monday, and supplied Howdy's voice for more than a year.
Yeah? Look, I can do Howdy Doody.
I know. I'm pretty sure Buffalo Bob Smith was a little full of himself.
Well, I mean, you want to think that nobody could do it, and then it probably was a little heartbreaking to hear him do it perfectly.
Yeah.
Hey there, Buffalo Bob. What are we doing today?
Gail Garnett played Francesca. Garnett is most well known for her folk hit We'll Sing in the Sunshine, which
We'll Sing in the Sunshine
won a 1965 Grammy for Best Folk Recording, sold over 1 million copies, thus gaining gold disc status.
Nice.
She'd done guest spots on shows like 77 Sunset Strip, The Real McCoys, and Have Gun Will Travel. After Mad Monster Party, Garnett went more psychedelic with her music. She retired from music in the 80s, but went on to continue acting, as well as branched out into journalism, writing essays, columns, and book reviews for various newspapers and magazines.
And she uncannily sounds exactly like
Kathleen Turner.
Yes, and it's just so...
You cannot not hear Kathleen Turner. No. It is amazing.
She's got a really sexy voice.
She is kind of very particular figure.
Well, in the
the Francesca has a very
it makes sense.
Yeah.
If the reveal at the end that we all saw coming, it makes sense that she looks like that. A lot of this, there's a lot of subversive humor in this.
Oh yeah.
And ideas that are kind of hidden in it that is very Mad Magazine.
Yes.
Yes. They designed her that way on purpose.
Of course. Gail Garnett, is the only cast member still alive.
Oh, let's go see her.
Yeah. Okay. I know. I think she's in her 80s. She was super young when she did this. She was like in her early 20s.
I would love to meet her. Let's get her on the show.
All right, I'll give her a call. Ethel Ennis as the title song singer. Ennis is an American jazz musician whose career spanned 7 decades. She spent the majority of her life in her hometown of Baltimore, Maryland, where she was affectionately known as the First Lady of Jazz.
Mad Monster Party.
Such a good song.
Eek! Ooh, creep.
In 1963, she recorded 4 LPs for RCA Victor. However, disenchanted with the creative direction of the label and artist management, Ennis left that label and took a hiatus. 8 years would pass before she received another recording contract.
Damn.
During this period, she sang the title song for the 1967 feature film Mad Monster Party, which is so fantastic.
All the music in it is just, if you love jazzy, surfy,
kind of
trippy mod
funky,
kind of
like,
60s music.
Oh,
baby.
so good.
Good soundtrack. Soundtrack sold well.
Yeah. In 1973, later that year, Ennis, a Democrat, was invited to sing at the re-inauguration of Richard Nixon.
Odd.
Her unusual a cappella rendition of the national anthem shocked some, but inspired many others.
Yeah, it was, it was really a swing and a miss. No,
she later appeared on the panel game show To Tell the Truth, and after she stood up as the real Ethel Ennis, reprised her a cappella rendition of the national anthem for the panelists and audience, receiving a standing ovation. She was not a fan of Richard Nixon.
Yeah, who was? Even Richard Nixon wasn't a fan of Richard Nixon.
Maury Laws composed the music. In 1964, he was hired as music director for Videocraft International, a post which he held for roughly 20 years.
Nice.
In this capacity, he conducted and scored music for a number of animated features, including
The Hobbit, Jack Frost, The Fight of the Dragons, The Daydreamer, The Wacky World of Mother Goose, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah, his
Happy birthday!
His music was fantastic. It is one of my favorite things about Mad Monster Party.
Yeah, it's so good.
The music was so good.
Because it's trippy and moddy, and it's like partially surfy, and it's just jazzy, and
it's so good.
It adds to the... It is just a kitschy, fun, weird movie. You know, the way that... I know, okay, let's just talk about the voices for 1 second before we move on. I think the attempted voices are better than the actual good voices because it balances it out. It doesn't sound like he's just doing a bunch of impersonations.
Right. I heard Jimmy Stewart. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I could always hear Jimmy Stewart right underneath the voice.
There was a hint. There was a little smidge of Jimmy.
He did with Charles Lawton as the freighter captain was fantastic.
He was good, yeah.
And his Peter Lorre was as Yetch.
Yes.
Was
yes.
so dead on.
Yetch. Oh, you're so pretty. I just want to touch you. He was the first, like, incel stalker, too.
Oh, he was so creepy.
Yetch was like, but Yetch, again, Yetch was manipulated because he wasn't a bad ghoul. He was like, he was a creep. But he, just like every stalker creep, when she was like, "You're a creep," he's like, "Oh, she wants me to creep after her.
Yeah.
Oh, I will creep for her," and then sings a song. But you know, at the end, he's like, "Oh, I don't want to hurt them," or blah blah blah. And then they're like, "Well, they're trying to take her from you. You deserve her. She was made for you, Yetch. Why don't you?" And so they basically convinced him to kidnap her.
They were manipulating him.
Yeah, poor Yetch. She doesn't know.
I mean, a crush on her. Like, I get it. I mean, he was
friend zoned.
Pretty lady, the only lady, that or Phyllis. Yeah.
But yes, it was spot on.
I love that Yetch, Peter Lorre, had literally a moon face. If they do close-ups, he actually had craters on his face.
Well, he had a weird head, too.
He had a weird head, yeah.
What's so funny, when we were talking about this, it wasn't really that weird, but he was an odd-looking gentleman.
He was.
He was used so much in, like, Looney Tunes He was used so much in Looney Tunes cartoons and animation and stuff because he was such a character. You know, he was just this weirdo. And the funny thing is, we were talking about it because of Mad Monster Party and maybe some of the Looney Tunes stuff. I assumed that he had played, like an
Igor type character.
He had played in some sort of Frankenstein movie, but he never did.
No,
he never did. And I bet you a lot of people, like, Mandela effect, one of our favorite things to talk about. I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you said Peter Lorre, did he play Igor? They'd be like 100%. That's who he's known for.
Yeah. So Dyke and the Blazers performed the song The Mummy as Little Tibia and the Phibias, the skeleton band.
It's the mummy.
It's my favorite song in the movie.
So great. And the long-haired skeleton playing.
So weird. Dyke and the Blazers was formed by Arlister Dyke Christian in 1965. They recorded until 1971 when Arlister was shot and killed during a botched drug deal at the age of 27.
Odd name. Dyke Christian just seems like a really bad porn name.
Well, the funny thing is that Arlister, I think, is a weird name.
Arlister is weird.
And then even stranger is that one of his other band members was named Avester.
Avester?
Avester. Literally just like Arlister, but with a V instead of the R.
Did they change their name?
I don't know, but it weirds me out.
What weirds me out is that he got killed in that drug deal and he wasn't on any drugs.
No,
he wasn't buying the drugs or
he
stuff.
had no. Although the cops, there was a detective in Phoenix that was like, "Oh man, he had more tracks on his arms than there are on the railroad." Like he was, yeah.
Well, that's probably what they said to justify it. But
Of course, they did.
who knows? I mean, he could have just been. There's, it reminds me of that scene in Boogie Nights, where they go to get the drugs or
Yeah.
rip off
It's
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina, yeah.
And he's just like, that is one of the most uncomfortable
So-
friggin' scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That weird little kid just popping off the fireworks. And, everybody's just completely cranked out.
It is so uncomfortable.
It's one of my favorite scenes. It's probably my favorite P.T. Anderson scene.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because it goes on way too long, but in a great way.
Yeah.
And it is just the acting in it all around is just so superb, and Alfred Molina is just masterful in it. But it just that's what I kind of, as soon as you mentioned that, I was like, that's where my mind went.
Oh yeah.
Got shot by a guy wearing briefs and a robe.
Probably. There is some dispute about whether the Skeleton Band actually is Dyke and the Blazers, as the only record of it is on the current DVD release liner notes, and the song The Mummy sounds nothing like the rest of their music. Yeah, so it's a little weird, but,
It's the mummy.
I have to call up Rick Goldschmidt and see what the deal is.
We got to do some investigation.
Frank Frazetta actually drew the theatrical poster for Mad Monster Party. Frazetta is a noted artist for comic books, paperback book covers, paintings, posters, LP record album covers, and other media. He's often referred to as the godfather of fantasy art and one of the most renowned illustrators of the 20th century. Frazetta was inducted into the comic book industry's Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame, the Jack Kirby Hall of Fame, the Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame, the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, and was awarded a Life Achievement Award from the World Fantasy Convention.
Amazing. People should know Frank Frazetta's name.
Yes.
And if you don't look him up, look at his stuff. Most of the stuff that you see today is 100% like from him.
Yes.
That guy
It
is such an
heavily
influence.
influenced, yeah.
Yeah, because he was like nobody else. And
He's so good, man. His paintings, his drawings.
Yeah.
If just go and look up Frank Frazetta, and the first thing that'll pop up is his self-portrait of him.
Oh, yeah.
And it is so good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Yeah, he was like the comic version of Norman Rockwell. He just had like this.
Oh my god, his fantasy stuff is so incredible.
Yeah.
He drew a lot for the comic magazine Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
He was just incredible.
Check him out if you're a fan of comics. If you're a fan of
art.
Check our buddy Frank Frazetta out.
Yeah. The movie received generally favorable reviews. Howard Thompson of the New York Times wrote that
This body should make everybody chuckle.
I don't know how much money the movie made. There's no record of that. But it was their last feature. They focused on just TV specials after that.
Look, this movie...
Well, so let me take it back.
Sorry.
It is their last animagic feature because they did stuff like The Hobbit and things later.
Oh, yeah.
Traditional animation, yeah.
And that was a whole style unto itself. If you watch the Rankin and Bass Hobbit movie...
Yeah.
Did they do the Lord of the Rings movie?
No.
That wasn't them.
No.
Because that was a lot of rotoscoping.
Yeah,
Different.
yeah.
It was a similar... They kind of robbed
Yeah.
the look
Yeah.
of that a bit. But The Hobbit... When I think of The Hobbit, I think of the Rankin and Bass
Right.
animated movie. I mean... I saw that so much as a kid. When you're in school and it's a rainy day,
Yeah.
they put on The Hobbit. It's like it was just present all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It was
And it is-
fantastic. It's so good.
It's an amazing adaptation. I did for an assignment. We had to do one of those choose your own adventure books.
Oh, nice.
And mine was basically The Hobbit, and I 100% aped that art style for my drawings. I
Nice.
completely copied the Rankin and Bass.
Rankin and Bass produced a related TV special called Mad, Mad, Mad Monsters from the ABC Saturday Superstar movie series, which aired on September 23rd, 1972.
Okay. Kids had it so great. We had it so great as kids. We owned Saturday mornings. And the fact that we had our own Saturday morning cartoon movies, which would be Scooby-Doo's, it was like there were so many great, weird, we talked about it on our, you go back and listen to our Saturday morning cartoon show because we talk about a lot of these movies. There was almost a sense of treating children like adults. Giving us our own mini child version of what the adults had. And that's kind of what we wanted back then. And we got it. And we got it on Saturday mornings, baby.
Yeah.
And that's...
Mad, Mad, Mad Monsters featured many of the same monster characters. Bob McFadden did his imitation of Karloff when voicing Baron Henry von Frankenstein, who resembles Baron Boris von Frankenstein.
Hank Frankenstein.
I think it was one of his brothers, I guess.
That's me, Hank. I go by Henry Hank Frankenstein. You need a new boat? I'm going to sell you a boat. Hank Frank.
It is really interesting that it does have a lot of the same monster characters, since at the end of Mad Monster Party, they all died?
Yeah. Spoiler alert for a 60-year-old movie. But yeah, the ending of Mad Monster Party
comes out of nowhere.
Is awesome. So the whole point, okay, I'm going to give you a little Mad Monster Party recap, just a quickie.
Yeah.
So the whole point of Mad Monster Party is Dr. Frankenstein is working on something new in his laboratory.
Yeah.
And he comes up with this goo that can destroy matter, any matter.
Well, he created the creation gene or whatever, or molecule,
Yes.
so now he got to do the destruction one.
The destruction gene. So, full circle. So he's like, I think I'm going to retire now. Yeah. And he has this big old party to announce his heir. Right. And his heir is this weird nephew of his, Felix,
yeah.
And Felix is Felix is a pharmacist. He has a lot of allergies. He wears glasses. He's mine without his glasses. He's just a little nebbishy guy.
And so many allergies.
So, we get all of our monsters. They all get on a boat. They all go to the island. They have these parties. There's all this stuff. And they're...
they all get so drunk.
They all get drunk and pass out and have these weird things. And then they plot against Felix.
Yeah, someone overhears the secret.
Right.
Of who's going to be the... Yeah.
So Francesca and Drac decide to plot. So everybody's plotting, everybody's fighting, everybody blah. And because they all want to be the head of the monsters, and they all want the power of destruction.
It's powerful. Yeah.
So all this stuff goes on. I don't want to spoil it for you because you got to watch it. But we get to the end, and the entire island and everybody except for Francesca and Felix gets destroyed to the point where there's nothing. They're disintegrated to nothing.
It's utter and total destruction.
And then we get the revelation that Francesca was a robot.
Because she was Frankenstein's masterpiece.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not made of human parts.
Yeah.
Made of robot parts.
She's got coils and springs.
And then, just weirdly, she tearfully confesses this to Felix because she loves him so much. Yeah. And so Felix's response is, well, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Oh, so he's a friggin' robot too?
Yeah.
It's so weird, but that's what I love about it. It's just so weird.
And that line is a great throwback to Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
The end of that.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Jack Lemmon, I think it was Lemmon, reveals that he's a man.
Yes.
And
then his suitor was like, nobody's perfect. Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah. And the look on his face.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, it is so weird. I did not do it justice, but it is just so weird. And it's another thing that could only have been made at that time.
Yes, it is such a weird movie. As soon as it ended, I just turned to Jim and was like, that's just so friggin' weird.
And again, like Bugsy Malone, it's a musical. I did not remember that it was a musical.
Phyllis Diller sings.
She sings for a while.
That goes on for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of most of the songs in the movie. The Karloff one's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do like the Mummy song because it's a fun, like, surf tune.
It's the Mummy.
Yeah.
And Francesca's song was great. I mean, she's got a really good voice.
Yeah.
They were all kind of weird, jazzy tunes. It's also those kind of songs that don't really rhyme or have any sort of real melodic consistency. No. It's just kind of like people saying stuff.
That's because
music.
Karloff doesn't actually sing.
Yeah. Yes, everyone, come down here to the Mad Monster Party.
But it doesn't matter. It's so good.
Oh, my God.
Animation is so good.
Yes.
So much emotion in these animagic characters. Like, it's just so fun to watch.
And the sets. The sets are so detailed.
Yeah.
So much minute detail.
Yeah.
In the beginning, when Dr. Frankenstein is making his beaker full of stuff, it's first red, then it's gold, then it's blue, and the reflection of the color hits his jacket in a way. It's just so impeccably done.
Yeah.
It's a little slow. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit slow, but it's also really funny and really fun to watch. And if you're a fan of puppets or stop motion, monsters, any of that stuff, you're going to love this movie. If you have kids, I mean, it's fine.
Show it to them. I mean, they may lose interest,
questions.
But
they're,
but it's fun.
Yes,
and
it's another one of these films for me that, when my sister and I were younger, it was one that when it came on, no matter where it was, we'd watch it because we just grew up loving that, and I loved the Universal monsters. I loved Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein is one of my top 10 probably films ever. Comedies, 100%.
Yeah.
And to see this, to get them all together at a party and with such great personalities.
Oh,
and
yeah.
such distinct, petty arguments, and they have like little, they have feuds within each other that go on for years.
The creature keeps barfing water onto, I think it was onto Dracula.
No, it was it
was on the Dr. Jekyll.
Dr. Jekyll.
I think it's raining.
It's raining. And here's one thing that really bugged me. So Dr. Jekyll has this awesome cane that apparently was a umbrella too. Didn't know that. Didn't look like an umbrella.
Yeah.
That he would pop a little shot glass off of and pour his elixir to turn him into Hyde.
Monster juice. Yeah.
But every time, he would never put the cap back on the cane, and he would drop the cane, and he would drop the cap, and he would never pick it up. He would just go do the monster stuff.
Mr. Hyde's not going to do that.
How did he get it back?
He would always because when he turned back to Dr. Jekyll, the last thing Dr. Jekyll remembered was exactly where he was, where he dropped it, so he'd go find it.
He had an Apple AirTag on it. And he would just...
I just love that apparently it holds like 50 gallons of this monster juice.
Yes.
Because he converts like 8 times during the movie.
And also, there's like 4 characters that don't really have any lines. Like, Hunchback of Notre Dame doesn't really talk.
He grunts.
The creature doesn't talk.
No, he doesn't even make noise at all.
There's some...
Or does he? Oh, yeah.
There's like bubbly noises.
Yeah.
And he barfs up a lot of water.
I don't think the Mummy talks at all.
Mummy doesn't talk. It doesn't talk.
And technically, Mr. Hyde does have a couple lines. Like he forms things a couple times.
Hyde! That was the weirdest thing. So Felix sees Jekyll turn into Hyde, and he's like, "Oh, you have some sort of condition." And he's like, "Hyde!" He's like, "You want to play hide and seek? Okay, I'll go hide." Like, what grown man plays hide and seek?
Hides in a boat for like 8 hours.
Oh, it's midnight. I better go see what's going on.
Yeah, if he doesn't find me soon, and then he immediately gets out of the boat. It's like, come on, Felix.
Yes. God, this movie is so
It's
fun.
a great movie. It is. There's so many little touches that are so good. It is so much fun. It's another movie from this month that influenced me that I didn't even realize.
Exactly, yeah.
I wrote a play that was about Universal monsters that's very similar. Well, I shouldn't say very similar, but similar to this.
It's got all the monsties, and it's got a lot of dad jokes. And, I mean, good dad jokes. It's not a dig, but it's it's got that kind of silly sense of humor that I love and that you love, which is
ironic because I'd never seen this until this week.
Yeah, it's got a lot of charm, and it's a really impressive feat. If you look at the scope of the sets. And this, like, just the last shot of the boat in the middle of the ocean with the two of them talking, it's epic. It was done so well. and with so much love and care, and you could tell that everybody in it really enjoyed making it and really enjoyed doing the voices.
Yeah. It really is interesting because in 1967 it was the height of the popularity of the monster stuff. I think the monster stuff was starting to fall apart.
Yeah,
and they made fun of it just in time because in 1968 is when Night of the Living Dead came out.
Yeah.
Like there are zombies in Mad Monster Party.
Yeah.
But like they're the zombies from like Lair of the White Worm and like all the stuff from like the
Haitian
30s.
voodoo zombies. They have like the nose rings and
they're all green and
but they look like zombies and they fall apart.
And they call them zombies.
Yeah. And I guess technically Yetch is a zombie.
Yeah, because his head falls off a couple times.
Oh, my head. Where's my head? And then that ass, was it the Invisible Man?
Yeah.
That put a pig's head on his head instead?
You're so mean.
I will put this on your head.
I love the Invisible Man is my favorite.
He's great.
Universal monster. A lot of it is because of the original movie. The original movie is so eminently rewatchable,
and it's also, except for maybe the exception of Dracula, it's the only monster you'd really want to be.
Yeah,
because nobody wants to be the monster from Frankenstein.
No,
nobody really wants to be the creature from the Black Lagoon.
No,
nobody wants to be the mummy just shuffling around in bandages,
get thrown overboard with your
turning into dust. Yeah. But hey, everybody wants to be invisible, and everybody'd like to turn into a bat. So
I did like the joke when they threw like pie at him. Another movie with pie throwing.
Another pie. Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. There's pies. There's singing.
Yeah,
yeah. There's a reason why these three movies fit well together.
Of course,
because there's nothing like each other really.
No.
But they're all three so uniquely different than anything that you've ever seen.
Totally.
That Murder by Death was unique before all the stuff that you've seen. So it's like something that was very unique at the time, but now, it seems like, oh, it's been done other stuff. But it hadn't been.
Right.
So all three of these movies are groundbreaking cult hits that are sometimes defy explanation, sometimes defy the laws of physics. I don't know. They're just fun, weird. If you're a cinephile, if you like weird stuff, if you're somebody who likes to watch obscure cinema, this is right up your alley.
Oh yeah, totally.
These movies are so much fun. Get your library card.
Yes.
Because this is where you're going to find these movies.
Yeah, it is not available on streaming. None of these this month are available on streaming.
No, they're hard to find, but they're worth it. You could probably order them on DVD and get them really cheap.
Yes.
It's worth a ticket price.
I'm kind of sad I didn't buy Mad Monster Party because I would rewatch it.
I probably
it's going to become a Halloween thing.
I probably
it's so much fun. It's really good when we have our next Halloween party. Just throw it on the background and just people find themselves sitting down and watching it.
100%. I guarantee you, if you throw that on, it's going to distract because people are going to be
good.
What's this?
Good, because it's something that everyone should know about.
Yeah. So go get your card, get these movies, get some pals, get some drinks, have a night of it. They're all pretty manageable. It's a good threefer. None of them are too long. None of them outstay their welcome.
No.
And you're really going to have a fun time watching these weirdo movies.
All right. We'll be back next week. We're starting a new month.
Yeah. 3 crazy Cusacks, baby.
Yeah. It's our John Cusack month.
Yeah. We're going to go back in time. We're going to go back in time.
Wait, we're doing Back to the Future?
No. We're going to do One Crazy Summer. We're going to do Tapeheads. Oh, one of my favorites. And Better Off Dead. We're going back to the Cusack prime, baby. Back when he was doing those crazy, wacky comedies. And
so excited for Better Off Dead.
Oh, yeah. There was nobody better when he was younger. I'm so excited about the Cusack month. I love him to death.
Better Off Dead was one of those movies that was on constantly that I've probably seen 1,000 times.
Oh, same. Same with that and One Crazy Summer. Both of those, because they're so very similar. I think they're by the...
I think so.
Both Savage Steve Holland.
We'll find out next month.
We sure will. We don't know any spoilers. Anyway, we'll be back with some new stuff. And come on back. Welcome to the Dick. Well... Welcome to the new show. Sorry.
Usually on the newly TV... Sorry.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming, Silver Spoons, already in progress.